5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye. Hello. Wherever you are in the world, one of those will apply to you. This is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us. If you are watching via YouTube, add your comments in as we go through. They will appear in the bottom corner here as you start commenting. If you're watching on catch-up, add them in the comments below. Always grateful to read those and interested as well. And if you are listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much for lending me your ears. Sorry for the delay in starting. It's been a bit of a shitty day. It was going to be a double header tonight. Actually, well, it was going to be a triple header because after this, I'm popping on to Leicester Fan TV, and then we're going to do Talking Balls tonight. Everybody's dropping out, so that will have to be rearranged. I don't know when, don't know where, but we'll meet again some sunny day. But this one is, look, I've just had to put this to bed, and I don't know if you subscribe to the Athletic or not. If you're not, please do. I mean, it's something like £1 or £2 a month. They've always got some sort of offer on. Now, the Athletic won't be covering Leicester much next season because we have dropped down and Rob Tanner's actually been taken off Leicester duty because they don't really cover championship teams. Typical Americans, really, because it's owned by the New York Post. But he wrote an amazing piece about Ruud van Nistelrooy's time at Leicester. Did he really fiddle while Leicester burned? A lot of people saying not just him, it's the board. They've got to take blame. He didn't get the backing. Would it have made any difference if he did? That's what we're asking tonight. I'm joined by Wayne. Let's get him in and let's talk Leicester. Wayne, looking very smart, looking like the milk tray man.
Well, I bought it when Ruud took over, to get in the vibe. There's a few did. I think Anil bought one, but he burnt his. And I thought, got rid of it, but it was just, I thought, I'd just have a see whether I can find it, and I did.
And you can still fit into it, so excellent news, sir. Look, time has gone. We've no longer got Ruud in. I've sort of done a bit of a cheeky, graphic there, but I did actually accuse Top of this as well. But I understand. Look, he took Ruud on. He was appointed, and let's be honest with you, we were all excited.
Oh, absolutely. The young fans, the older fans, we sort of know him from his playing career, and the younger fans, because of his tactical, what he did at PSV, and working with the kids, it was a match made in heaven, wasn't it? We were all super excited.
Indeed. And Look, I know he were only 4 matches with us with Manchester United as manager, and let's be honest, had he been offered that manager's job there, we would not have seen him for dust. It almost took us as like, the booby prize, if you like, because we know he wanted the Man United job. Thing is, though, I mean, when you look back, managed 4 games, won 3, drew 1, but 2 of those wins was against us.
Yes, which is interesting because we were absolutely shocking, weren't we?
Mm.
So basically, it bagged 6 points that probably should have bagged anyway, and even a standing coach probably would have done with the team. And I wonder who the other 2 teams have played, actually. That'd be interesting to find out.
Can't remember.
They played Man City, didn't they? I think they played Man City in one of them.
Okay.
Did they go with Man City? Something like that, anyway.
I mean, the interesting thing is, let's ask the question first of all. Get the elephant in the room out of the way. Was Top wrong to offer the job to Ruud van Nistelrooy? And I'm not saying was he wrong to sack Steve Cooper, because that's another show, another story. Was he wrong to appoint this guy to the job?
Not really. I think you can only, we are not able to pluck the best managers. We're not the club that can pick a manager who's finished first or second in the Bundesliga, and so we've got to take chances.
Yes.
We did it with Conte, we did it with players, we did it with Claudio, which was really left field, and we did it with Enzo.
Yes.
That was quite left field, which turned out to be brilliant, although short-lived. So, everybody's trying to get the best manager in. Everybody. So we're not going to get everything right. And I think it was right to do it. We were all excited that he did it.
Yeah.
But it just didn't quite work out.
It didn't, no. Hi, Graham. He says, was Top wrong? He was wronger than Gary Litter. Oh, let's not go there. Let's not go there, Graham. I should have read that first, shouldn't I? Yes, sorry for appointment, but everyone is a genius in hindsight. Exactly, Ant, and welcome along. Exactly, mate. That's the point, isn't it? Is that when you look at, in hindsight, but at the time, I don't think he was the wrong appointment. I mean, you mentioned Enzo there, Wayne, but he had, but Ruud had more managerial experience when he took over than Enzo did.
Yeah, he won 2 cups, didn't he, with PSV? I mean, he did. When you look at his squad, he had Gakpo, Madueke, he had a brilliant Luke De Jong, brilliant forward, reliable scorer, and he had a lot of good players at PSV. So he's got more experience, definitely. And you don't know. Sometimes it can be the group of you think, because we've had discussions, haven't we? Like Rodgers, was it the group of players to blame that we got relegated with Rodgers, etc., etc. So hindsight, in that sense, a valuable thing.
It is. And as Ant said, Graham says that's the wrongest thing you could think of. I don't want him at the time, but still more excited by Cooper. I wanted Dyche. Of course you did. We remember that. But look, let's go to this bit here. So look, he comes in, and we are all really buzzing about it. I mean, as I said at the time, Ruud van Nistelrooy was the Enzo type appointment. In that, when we took Enzo on, it gave a buzz, didn't it, to the club? We were on our knees. We just got relegated, which on that time, this season we were expecting it. That season we really weren't, and it went down to the last day. So you had this manager come in that literally, like I say, gave us, oh my God, 6 days ago he was holding the Champions League, and now he's he's a Pep disciple. He's got Pep dust sprinkled all over him. It really gave us a boost. And whilst we weren't that bad, and I think in some ways, when we avoided the PSR points deduction, I think we all suddenly, as Leicester fans, thought we're going to stay up. We're going to challenge for Europe, sort of thing, you know. So maybe we were expecting a lot, but we were down on our knees, and this appointment was that sort of Enzo buzzing appointment, wasn't it?
Spot on, Chris. Absolutely spot on. We need that Enzo appointment. We needed him. He turned up at Seagrave in his trendy check black and white jacket, nice bit of style, bit of a cheeky chap in that, and we needed that after the relegation because we're all down about it. Yeah. And after Cooper and when the way where some fans thought we were heading with Cooper, it was a breath of fresh air, you know. But I do think if Ruud was appointed instead of Enzo, he probably would have got Leicester up with the squad. We've got the most expensive squad ever assembled in the Championship. So Ruud van Nistelrooy might have took us up. But Ruud, he had a difficult job. And
Yes, he did. But let's have a look at that job. The way that, and this was Rob Tanner that was writing this, I say it's a great article. As Newcastle United became the third team in just over 8 games to score inside the first 2 minutes against Leicester City, the live television camera turned to manager Ruud van Nistelrooy on the touchline. For fuck's sake, he vented in frustration. Now, you know, I mean, you've read this article, and that's the thing. I compare it very much to the Great Escape season. We lost probably just as much. I can't remember the facts, but we lost a load of games at the start there, didn't we? After Man United, they all went wrong. So here we were in the Great Escape season, but every time we turned up, I'm not sure, Ant. I'm not sure you would have done. But every time we went up, every time we played, we fought. I was driving. I had a 7.5 hour return journey from the South Coast every weekend. Well, every home game to watch Leicester City, that Great Escape season. And I never went home, never drove home, and it was a miserable drive home, as you can imagine, especially when we kept losing. But I never at any point was downhearted because the guys had gone out and fought. There was none of that this season, was there? And eight games where we scored within the opposition scored within the first 2 minutes. That's damning.
It is. And me and my brother were at that Newcastle game, and it's just the way the goal was scored. The first goal for Newcastle was a bit calamitous. There was a lob that came back off the bar, and then somebody who got the rebound, was it Murphy, from Isaac? And you could just see all the players, they looked deflated and defeated. Which, ironically, having read this book about Ruud van Nistelrooy, this says that, and he's quoted saying that he is not just interested in getting players to play like he did. He wants to help them develop strength of character for when things go wrong. Because you need to work at your career, you need to work at your mental toughness and discipline. So then when things go wrong, you've got the strength and capability to overcome those hurdles that you need to in professional sport. But it didn't translate into him managing Leicester, did it?
It didn't at all. And the thing is, the sign of a good manager, and look, I'm not going to say that Ruud van Nistelrooy would have turned things round and turned us into, primetime Manchester City. But the thing of a good manager is making an effort enough. What the effort he made in winning 2 games, was it? And one of those was when he first took over. I mean, that was awful, wasn't it? There was no sign that he was actually could turn things round.
No, he looked a defeated man. You said before, didn't you? In his post-match interviews, it was the words he was choosing were really negative and damaging to the team, really. And the tone of his voice was like he'd lost all belief that he could do the job there, and he was just trying to, I think, get through the post-match interviews and press conferences. He just didn't want to be there, did he?
No, and I think that like you say, that came across, didn't it? I think if ever we had ever we saw a manager that was literally was just treading water and just coming on and taking his money, that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think for you, like you said about the drive back to all the way down to South Coast, Chris, it's awful. Like when you go to places like Newcastle or right down south from the Midlands, it's bad enough when you see fans going home and they're driving 4 or 5 miles to a place in Leicestershire. You know, that is it. And you've got all the fans like Kate, Craig, do all the away tripping and that, and Jack. I mean, that's a long drive home, isn't it? After that,
Yeah.
When you're thinking, like you said, at least in the Great Escape season, we were always in the games, weren't we?
Yes.
Always in the games. We lost by the odd goal, but we were just, we played Man United and beat them. We thought, here we go. And then, like you said, we went on a rubbish run, but we're still in all the games. You couldn't criticise the team for that, could you?
Not at all. Not at all. And that's the thing. I mean, Ant says it felt like a chore to go to the games last season. I mean, when as a football fan, you think that. I mean, I don't think we even felt that way when we were in League One. We're winning most of the games there. But, it goes on to say every novice lit reader was aware of his feelings and every Leicester fan shared his sentiment as their team slid in embarrassing fashion towards a second relegation in 3 years. And the Dutchman was powerless to stop it. It was, I mean, we were the Titanic, weren't we? Heading for the iceberg.
We were. It was absolutely turgid. You do the watch-alongs, and you were struggling for anything positive to say.
Yeah.
Man of the match. You introduced Donkey of the match, didn't you?
I did indeed. Yes.
Because what you needed to do something with what the team was shelling out and producing, and it was just a beaten man. And that always surprised me about Ruud van Nistelrooy. And having spent like half an hour or so reading through this book, he hops on, and he's quite. I know it's a third-party book, but he's quoted saying it's really important. The mental character of the person is really important, and he was the one that gave up. And if your leader's giving up,
they say, don't they, that after a while, the owner tends to sort of imitate his dog. They almost become as one. And I think with football, the team takes on the persona of the manager. You look at the team under Martin O'Neill, that took on the persona of the manager, of Martin O'Neill.
Yeah, and same with Brendan, isn't it? I mean, what a brilliant footballing side, but when he gave up, that reflected in the team. And the team, despite being excellent players, I mean, some of those players have gone on to play brilliant careers carrying on in the Premier League.
Yeah.
The team had just gone. And we were that shocked. We're expected to finish like 8th or something, and we finished... When we got relegated, that was like
18th,
yeah. Just from the manager giving up.
Yeah, I've managed a team, and I've obviously been under a manager on a sales team, and especially with the sales team, you have to go in and really be sort of upbeat and what have you. And if I went in, which I have to admit, a couple of times I did, if I went in a bit pissed off and a bit down, we had an awful day.
Yeah. Yeah, your mood is everything, and it's contagious. That's the thing. Contagious. Negativity is contagious.
Yeah. He says here, Leicester's appointment of Van Nistelrooy proved disastrous not only for the club but for him. And I think this is it as well. I mean, look. I've put there Leicester Burn Ruud fiddled, and I've done the artwork of did he ruin the club and what. But this was a club, and he hasn't, it was, like you say, it was like him taking over the Titanic halfway through the journey. We were already heading that way. But who's going to appoint Ruud van Nistelrooy now? I know we always say, clubs will appoint, managers will always seem to get another job. It doesn't matter if you there's no other industry where you can be sacked 2 or 3 times and still walk into another job. And people might look at a manager that's come from Watford and go, all right, so he was sacked by Watford, who hasn't been sacked by Watford. But all the records we were breaking were records not for the right reasons, for the wrong reasons. Most games without a goal, most games without a win, most losses since football began. I mean, it was who could you see in this country appointing him again now?
I can't see anybody. I think he needs to drop down. Drop down how Gerrard has done with Coventry. He needs to go for a lesser job and rebuild himself. I think, the Man United 4 game was an anomaly, and I think he came to Leicester, and he just struggled to do the job. He just struggled, and when it came to it, I mean, his character had a bit of a shaking, and he wasn't up to the task. He'd lost the plot, and he'd given up.
They said here he was handed the reins in November last year to replace Steve Cooper, who had been sacked after just 12 games in charge. And I think, look, in hindsight, we will never know. We will never be able to say that Steve Cooper would have kept us up, or Ruud would have kept us up if he'd been given the job, although he wasn't available at the start. But we will never know. We can never answer that question, But I do look back, and yes, I wanted Steve Cooper as one of my choices when he took over. He was handed a hot potato, though, because he'd got nobody there because to sort of Marty's got Kingy to sort of over the two teams before and after. There was nobody for Cooper because Enzo had fucked off with taken all his staff, so he was given a hot potato. Not saying he would have kept us up, and I did want him to go again with these beautiful hindsight glasses on that I've got, and I notice you've got your hindsight glasses on your head. I don't know if have you got a 2-way mirror on your roof and the lady upstairs is having a shower. Looking up there.
Well, apparently the sun's coming out. The sun's come out in the last hour, Chris. So
has it? You tell it's not done down here, but I think in hindsight we can say he was sacked too quickly, can't we?
I think so. I think there was a lot of younger fans' pressure, but as I was working, I asked lots of my customers. First of all, what were you pleased with? What do you think about the Coopers? Yeah, you know what I mean. Forest, blah blah. But they all liked him. They're saying, as long as, because their view was, as long as we finish 17th and we stay up, that's all we need to do.
Yes.
Whereas other fans were saying, well, the football's a bit crap, and he's not that. He's not one of these sort of Pep disciples, as you often say.
Yeah.
But interestingly, Cooper did. So what Marty does with the front five, Cooper did with the front five. So Enzo micromanaged them. It's interesting. Albrighton, in his interview, in one interview, said, Enzo, some of us looking around during his meetings when he was going into micro detail and thinking, shut up. You know what I mean? There was it was too much information. It was information overload.
Yeah.
It micromanaged every detail, whereas Marty, ironically, Cooper was quite like Marty. So Cooper said, yeah, we want structure, we need to invert whatever, but when we get the ball in the top final third, I'll leave it up to you, basically.
Yes.
And they reckon that's what Marty is like.
Well, like I say, we'll never know, but we weren't as bad as we were when we sacked him. But look, talking about when we sacked him very quickly, we sacked Ruud very, very slowly, and it almost felt like a very slow death by poison, And it says here he knew he was on thin ice, but hoped Leicester would realise he had spent 5 months on a steep learning curve and had knowledge of what was required to rebuild the club next season. I don't think it's very rare you see a manager go down and keep the job. I mean, yes, it happens. I know that Burnley did with Sean Dyche and what have you. That's, complete. There you go for a hunt. There you go the other way, But generally speaking, they go down. Now, the interesting thing is, the stats, sorry, if they go down. Interesting thing is, it says the Athletic looks at the Dutchman's disastrous tenure. All sources spoke on the condition of anonymity, not easy for me to say, to protect relationships. So nobody that's done here has actually come out and said, yeah, I'll come out on the record and what have you. But here we go. So Van Nistelrooy had graduated from being one of the best strikers in Europe to quietly doing his coaching apprenticeship in the youth ranks of one of his former clubs, PSV, which again, we're not talking like not Cooper, Potter, who did it at unknown clubs. He did it at a really big club. He built an impressive reputation as a coach, winning 2 trophies at PSV before working under Eric Ten Hag at Old Trafford and stepping up in a brief 4-game tenure, as we said. His record, however, his reputation has been severely damaged, as we said earlier, over his time. And his record since taking over from Cooper at the end of November last year is one of the worst in the club's history, and Leicester have set unwanted Premier League records. I don't think it's one of the worst. I honestly think it probably is the worst. And I can just about I remember Peter Taylor's reign, and I can just about remember Frank McLintock's reign. And I would have this down as worse than those two.
Yeah, I think you did a poll, didn't you, Chris, about is it worse than Peter Taylor's reign? And fans were saying yes.
Yeah, yes.
You can remember that age, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And Ant says the worst thing about the Cooper sacking was the clown party after with "We Miss You" Enzo sign. I mean, the thing is, right, and here you see the players doing that, but the players have got to take a bit of the blame anyway, depending how much depends, on the individual. But how often have we said in here, when we've sacked managers, and we've sacked quite a few over the recent years, that it's player power?
Yeah, and to be honest, Chris, it's like with when Brendan sort of threw his dummy out the pram. Those players were good enough for us to stay up. If they decided to fight, there's no way Walshy, Taggart, Savage, Lennon, and those eras would have given up, even if Martin O'Neill had walked. They would have fought a lot harder. I think it does highlight the fact that there's been a regular theme of players having a bad attitude. Brendan Rodgers said they did at Seagrave, some of them, like leaving plates to, you look after me, and, kind of delusions of grandeur and that. And we shouldn't have got, coming into the Premier League, I think a lot of players, because we had such a good season under Enzo, which with the squad, we should have done. We should have done it. And they go in the Premier League, bad attitude by people. And it's the more senior players that I think in general have had the bad attitude.
During this time you've got here, just take this in, everybody. This is what we now have on our record. We've got the fact that we won the Premier League. We've also got these scoring goals has been a huge issue. They have just 25 in the league with only 11 at home. This is the club's low tally in the Premier League, although the club's low tally in the Premier League was 30 in 2001-2, and their worst of any season is 26, 77 to 78. Now, I can't, off the top of my head, can you remember how many goals we scored last season? Because I can't.
Is it 20?
You'll carry on talking while I have a very good look.
Well, it's interesting because the stats on PSV, they reckon Ruud van Nistelrooy's mantra is rapid transitions, defensive stability,
33
stability, and organised pressure from the team, disciplined organised pressure. That's his mantra.
33 we scored at the end.
Right.
And I've said before, in the short time that Marty's been in charge, I've discovered that there's two ends to a pitch.
Yeah. One thing under Ruud actually reminded me, Chris. We struggled to transition from defence to midfield once it broke down, and definitely midfield to attack. We had a complete disconnect, which caused Vardy to completely dry up under Ruud van Nistelrooy, which you highlighted many times, didn't you?
Mm. I mean, it just, as I'm reading, I mean, the 2 seasons at the same where we were worse is 1977-78, which I have a feeling is going to be in the McClintock year. Yes, it was. We finished rock bottom that year. Roger Davis was our top scorer with 4. Bloody hell. And the 2001-2 season, is that the Peter Taylor year? I think it probably is, actually, yes, because, again, that was a relegation year. The lowest points we had before that was 22 in 1908-9 and 77-78 that year, when it was 2 points for a win. And we only got 25 points when it's 3 points for a win. I mean, you know, these are sort of the things that we've now got to live with. You know, when we go to people and say, "Oh yeah, we were Premier League winners," yeah, and you also got the record for the least number of goals and all this.
That's what you said. You're smashing all sorts of records, but they're the wrong kind of records.
Totally. High blue. In statistical terms, 78. 77-8, 94-5 and 2001-2 were particular stinkers overall, but this campaign is heading towards eclipsing even those. It is hard to imagine a worse sequence than 14 defeats in 15 games. No player or manager would be proud to have that stain on their footballing CV. And yet we still got some of those players at the club.
Yeah, was it also the earliest relegation in Premier? Were we relegated, 3 or 4 games to go? Was it something like that?
Southampton did it quicker than us this season, because they were relegated before we were. We were relegated before Ipswich were, despite finishing above them. And obviously, I think the quickest was probably that Derby County side. I don't know. Yeah. But it says there, according to the sources close to the squad, the Leicester players initially were impressed that a former player whose stature was coming in rather than a coach with no playing background like Cooper. So, again, that leads you to think, well, hang on, you know, maybe in a way it was, looking at it now, at the time, it was a decent appointment.
I think it was, Chris. There's no way any of those players would think, don't like him. He's an icon, especially of all the age of the players. You know, Man United, Europe, Real Madrid, helped Real Madrid some great successes. So he would garner definitely. Yeah,
I was giggling now.
Especially money. You know why I put it on? Because it's the Ruud van Nistelrooy turtleneck, which what's his name? Anil bought one and he burnt it. But also, I knew that Manny would say something. I knew there'd be some cutting jibs coming from Manny.
Oh dear! Just because the lady loves milk tray. Thing is, Manny, you're an old bugger as well, because that's what I said right at the top of the show. But it said here, Van Nistelrooy seems to have had that impact at Old Trafford. Following Ten Hag's exit in October, he won 3 of his games as interim head coach, including 2 matches against Leicester. But what impressed the hierarchy at the King Power was the apparent bond he had with the players, especially Casemiro, who ran to celebrate one of his goals with Van Nistelrooy on the touchline. And you know, I'm thinking, like, look, if he can motivate those players, and obviously the Man United, if you look at the individual players, they were head and shoulders above what we had. But if he can motivate them to go on, you know, not losing 4 games, have that relationship, which he then appeared to have when he started at Leicester, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. It's a marriage made in heaven, isn't it, Chris?
Oh, that's the thing. You would think so, wouldn't you? You really would think so.
The logic of it, you know, his mentality, the way he tries to build character and resilience in people, his fluid style with like mental discipline and structure. All the elements were there, but I just think there were stories of he started to come down hard on certain players, weren't there? with their attitude, and maybe ruffled a few feathers. Did he fall out with Vestergaard? I think that was a rumour.
Well, yes, he fell out with Vestergaard, and I'm not defending Vestergaard here, but when you're told that you can take your dog in, it's like your team leader saying, yes, you can have Monday afternoon off, but then your floor manager comes up and says, no, you can't. If he's told one thing and then the other, do they still do love bites? I don't remember, but God knows what he's hiding, man.
Yeah, it's Manny's generation, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It was hoped Van Nistelrooy would set new high standards and generate a similar response from the Leicester players. They had struggled to connect with Cooper's more relaxed methods after their championship season under Enzo Maresca. A close friend of Van Nistelrooy from when they were both at Malaga, and a coach with similar philosophies. Now, that's it again. They hadn't connected with Cooper, and now they were connecting with Van Nistelrooy. Like I've just said, what could possibly go wrong? But I don't, if you're connecting with this manager, Cooper was the same, was relaxed. What went wrong between the players and Van Nistelrooy?
Well, basically, I'm sure, was it Rob Tanner said something like he challenged. He said, "Oh, you're not fit enough. First of all, you're not fit enough." Because obviously, the modern managers, they want the high press, they want athleticism, and although you've got Dakar, we've said, haven't we, when we played Combe, athleticism wasn't there from the older players. No. So I don't think you can play the more modern brand of football with high press. You're not high pressing all the time because it's physical impossibility, but you're pressing with intensity as a group when certain triggers come along, like when they give it to a certain centre half. So you can't play that system. So he must have been really frustrated with the squad we've got and the team, because I don't think that the ageing squad we've got allowed him to do what he really needed to do, because it's a very different age squad that we had compared to his squad at PSV. Gakpo, they're all young. He had, was it Luke de Jong, who was a bit older, like 27, 28, but all the rest were pretty young.
So on the surface, it looked the perfect appointment, didn't it? It really did. But then we got the fact that Maresca had the pre-season. Then you also had, Cooper had the pre-season. Van Nistelrooy didn't, to work with the players. But more concerningly, it says here, he arrived without any backroom staff.
Yeah.
And again, now, I'm going to take this blame off Ruud van Nistelrooy, because surely when you were appointing a manager of a football club, you were looking at it and you said, right, so who are you going to bring in? They'd sacked Cooper, but they'd also sacked his assistant Alan Tate and chief analysis Steve Rams. So they'd got rid of the sort of team, if you like. Now, remember when we sacked Nigel Pearson, we kept Craig Shakespeare.
Yeah, very important.
Had we kept, this is all hindsight, had we kept Alan Tate, at least, there would have been that continuity thing like with Kingy now, wouldn't there?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I do think that Ruud van Nistelrooy was very unlucky with the situation he inherited. And, you think, okay, so this is a mess. So what do I do about it? And if you've not got you've got to have your backroom staff. I mean, look at it. This calm second in command to Marte. I think Marty's. So Ruud van Nistelrooy took over the team where your Mongers, your Jake Evans, they weren't really. Kingy hadn't spent a year with them bringing them on, so Marty's got he's taken over something, and he's in a lot healthier position than Ruud did. Yeah. So I do think Ruud did inherit a bit of a mess, and it's going to be interesting. And obviously Cooper had all the signings.
Yes, he did.
He spent 80 million, and Ruud spent what, 1.5 million.
He did, but at least to a point, Cooper played his signings. Possibly at the expense of other players, but Cooper, the one signing he did make, for some reason he never played. having said that, the remainder of Cooper's coaching team, Ben Dawson and Danny Alcock, did not leave until. So I was smiling there because I'm just thinking Ruud van Nistelrooy was a huge cock, wasn't he? But the remainder of Cooper's.
Even he's laughing at your joke, Chris.
Yeah, well, exactly. Wrong side again. That's what confused me. The remainder of Cooper's coaching team, Ben Dawson and Donny Alcock, did not leave until after the 4-0 home defeat to Brentford at the end of February, nearly 3 months after Van Nistelrooy's arrival. So again, now Van Nistelrooy's come in, and apart from those first 2 games when we won and drew,
Yeah,
and it all kind of went wrong. He's got those players. He's got those players to do the overlap. Was he not listening to them, do you think?
probably not. No, I think with him being really experienced in world football, and because he helped manage Gus Hiddink, didn't he? Manage the Dutch national team when they finished 3rd in the World Cup, was it? I think something like that. So, yeah. He's an intelligent guy. He's seen it all, and he probably did look at our squad and think, "Holy crap!"
But when you look at those players, the sum of all the parts should have been reasonably good.
I think though the important words there are "should have," Chris.
yeah, I grant you. But when you look at that season, so I'm just scrolling down here, you're looking at a team that when Ruud took over, sorry, because we let 4 in against the 2 Brentford games. That's what confused me. So they were there when we beat West Ham. They were there when we drew with Brighton. They were. Where's the Brentford game then? The end of February, they said, didn't they? So, 4-0 to Brentford, 21st of February, and that was at home. They were there also when we beat Tottenham 2-1. Now, all right, we lost every other game in between that. I just want he then went and the club then went and got rid of those 2, didn't they? But even when they went, he kind of brought in his this goalkeeping coach, whatever he was, as his assistant manager. But there was just no structure. He was almost like managing it on the hoof, wasn't he?
Yeah, and you can't manage a football team on your own, basically. It's just impossible. Because there's so many drills you've got to observe. I know you've got this sort of conditioning trait and fitness coaches, and they feed back how players are doing, and you look at all the stats. But that is just it's such a big job. Such a big job. Yeah. And I just think, plus as well, the Premier League is so very different. So if he'd have took over like when Enzo took over, he probably would have got us up, probably built relationships, probably been able to spend the money that Cooper did. And I think, do you think, okay, in hypotheticals, that we'd stay up in the Premier League? I think, yeah, probably did. But when he took over, even though, we were at the relegation zone, I just think he took over an awful situation with a team.
Yes, he took over an awful situation. I grant that. But when he's offered the job, and let's be honest with you, they would have been talking. They wanted to talk to him on Monday. He accepted on Tuesday, and he started on Wednesday. It would have been going on for a while. So if I'm talking about taking over and managing a department, between talking about it and actually being given the job, I'm thinking, what can I do? Who am I going to give the jobs? That guy's the best in the department, so he should be doing this. You get a plan together. He joined us with no backroom staff, no assistant manager. This guy, Gerald Tenrolier, became his first appointment a week after his arrival. Again, after some delays surrounding his work permit. But he wasn't an assistant manager. He literally was like a coach, if you like. The Dutchman threw himself into his role, taking every training session and video analysis session until Tenrowler became his first appointment a week after he arrived. Again, it's just all these things like, a work permit everything was sort of like a deck of cards, isn't it? One falls and they all fall,
Yeah. I always thought his name, I thought his name was Rottweiler, and he did look a bit like a Rottweiler, didn't he? The coach.
Yeah.
He looked like if you gave him a bit of lip, he might take you down alley and give you a good thumping. But yeah, you need your staff, and he didn't have it. And I think that's the difference. So I think, like Manny said, Marty's cute with people and calm, which is a great name for a second in command. I think that, because they did an interview with that Calm, and it really talks about him and Marty. They used to like playing other opposing teams, and the philosophy, and they've got Kingy there. So the setup for this team now, especially with the Seagrave kids being that much more mature and older and being incorporated into the side, that's why I think things are far better set up for Marty now than they ever were for Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think he was just bound to fail almost, really.
Manny said there, remember who started with 4 points in 2 games, and he lost Mads and Wilf, key players compounded by the loss of Fatawu. But I'm not saying if that hadn't happened, would we have stayed up? I still don't think we would have done. Not under, when you look at how he managed, and 14 losses in 15 games, etc., etc., etc. That, yes, you can say, you lose a player, so that, if he's your best goal scorer, that will affect you. But good managers work the way around that, and I don't think he did.
You do, Chris, but Fatawu is such a. He could play it even now. I reckon he would, if we don't go up, he might get signed by a top. You can imagine playing for someone like Liverpool.
Yeah, no, he could. But look,
could have, I think we would have been like 13, 14 points different because of a player like Fatawu.
We sold Maddison, we sold Barnes, we still got promoted. Oh no, we didn't sell Barnes then, did we? Sorry, no, we sold Maddison and we still got promoted. One player, I know you're talking about 3 there. Wilfred Ndidi, who, let's be honest with you, he didn't impress last season anyway. And Mads, we know he came back too soon. But if we'd had Fatawu, would we have stayed up? No, I don't think we would have made that
staying up in the. Sorry, Chris. Isn't staying up in the Premier League far more difficult than getting promoted from the Championship, which in general is pretty turgid?
I would absolutely say not. I think the second tier is pretty much one. It's better than a lot of the first tiers in many of the other countries. I think it's difficult. If you don't come straight back up, it's really difficult to get out of.
It is, but then I'd counter that and say, so why are we on a hat trick of promoted sides from the Championship getting relegated? Because the champion, it doesn't matter whether you finish first or second in the Championship. You go to the Premier League and you get your ass whooped.
So when Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton got promoted, Leeds were turgid, weren't they?
Sorry, when they got...
When those 3 got promoted, because Leeds didn't get promoted, they were just turgid, were they?
I think Leeds should have gone up. They just bottled it. They should have gone up.
I think it's like anything else. If you take, say, the bottom half of the Championship, you got some teams in there that... But I think you're doing it personally. I respect your opinion again, but I would disagree with you on that. But he came in very professionalised, wanted that certain professionalism. He tried to install the same level of professionalism and self-sacrifice in his players. Do you think he read the room wrong, if you like, Van Nistelrooy?
I don't think so. I do think if he can recover and go to a lesser club and just have a couple of good seasons with another club, I can see someone like Ruud van Nistelrooy managing at a really good level. It's like when Company went, with Burnley, and then what has he done since in the Bundesliga? So I do think he's got all the ingredients. I just think he was walking into a really bad situation. And I do think historically, some of the players we've got think they're far better than they actually are.
Yeah.
And I think Vestergaard, I do think, with a younger team around in Vestergaard, okay, but it's going to be interesting if he does decide to play Vestergaard, how that will work out.
Yeah.
You know.
It says here his stature brought respect from the players, but Van Nistelrooy quickly began to find that, and this is the interesting point, while they could carry out his instructions on the training pitch at Seagrave, it was becoming a different matter under the pressure of match days.
Yeah. I know, weren't you surprised when you read that?
Yeah, that was like, whoa. And then I've just heard that Marty says Samari's doing really well on the training pitch, and Daka's scoring some absolutely wonderful goals on the training pitch. And it's like, well, all right. So why aren't they? Why aren't they doing it on the pitch on the in match days? Again, that's down to Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Or is it just the it's like a goal scorer. Once they go off the boil, Lineker's done it, Owen's done it. And I just think, he was absolutely gobsmacked, didn't it? When it comes to the match days, they were just completely, all the training was going out the window. And that's one thing I do think with the younger players from Seagrave, they're so used to coaching drills and technical, multi-positional football. I do think your reactions go and your ability to concentrate goes. And sometimes as you get older, you think, to be honest, I can't really be asked. So I think we've got an aging squad, and I think that has highlighted our problems.
Tension started to emerge with Van Nistelrooy criticising Buenette's selection of moulded studs in the game. I mean, there's bigger problems than somebody's studs, isn't there? I mean, for sake, do you know what I mean? He also
you ran your. Oh, sorry, Chris. You imagine if you ran your sales team.
Sorry, whoever talking.
You ran your sales team and you pick them up on every single thing.
Yeah, it doesn't do confidence any good, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. Did he fall over a lot in one game? I'm not sure. He also made 3 players that commuted long distances to Seagrave: Connor Cody from Liverpool, Winks and Vestergaard from the London area, where he wanted them to avoid tiring journeys by staying over at the hotel at Seagrave, when the morning training session followed an afternoon session the day before. Winks, who initially moved to Nottinghamshire when he signed, interesting, but then moved back to London to be near family when he became a father in March, expressed his desire to support his partner. While Van Nistelrooy had sympathy for his midfielder's situation, he demanded players put their preparation first. Winks did not feature in another squad under Van Nistelrooy. Now look, you could argue whether you agree with what Winks was like or whether Van Nistelrooy was right. But there has to be, as a boss of any description, there has to be a bit of give and take. And to actually then not play basically still one of our best players, because of that, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like Brendan Rodgers with Soyuncu, one of our best defenders, and he didn't pick him. And as soon as John Terry came in, he said, "What the fuck's he doing training with the kids?" And I just think that this is where he let himself down for me. Yes, he might have the tactics and the reputation, and that does count for a lot, but you've got to know how to speak and deal with players.
Yeah, and that comparison is spot on, Chris, about Soyuncu with Rodgers. And when you do things like that, you do lose respect in the dressing room, don't you?
Yes.
You know, because players will say, "Oh my God, he's just being, what's he?" I mean, the one thing about the boots, I do get that, because there was a game, Chelsea, was it last season, where Cucurella slipped twice and the team scored 2 goals. Now, Chelsea, I think they did go on to win it, but he was like chucking his boots at the kick guy, but he chose the boots to wear on the pitch. So you can't.
I don't remember anything like that happening with Buenete, but it's not to say that it didn't. No. It says here, and then of course we had Vestergaard's dog incident, but apparently he had, with the club's permission, brought his dog into training. So, like I said earlier, he's told he can do it, and then Ruud van Nistelrooy said, you know, what you're doing, sort of thing. And it says here, Nistelrooy began to trust a smaller section of his squad. The home defeat, which obviously you were at, to Newcastle in April, was the fourth consecutive defeat in which he named the same starting lineup. And I mean, how often do we say this? You know, insanity, trying to do the same thing time after time, expecting a different result. He returned to his preferred system at Brighton and Hove Albion afterwards, and turned more towards younger players in the final games of the tenure. Despite stating his first preference, he was not wedded to one system of play, really. He utilised it Vivek, so 4-2-3-1 with a high fullback pushing it on, one winger and one wide player coming into play as the second number 10, was a system not dissimilar to Cooper's.
Yeah, but the trouble is, it's like Enzo's system, which, you know, Kate and other people went down, said it was flipping boring. That's a lot of customers. And that's why I like Marty's system, because it's very, very, very fluid. And I think like Enzo, one or two of the managers in the Championship, they got Enzo's number, and they like Chef Wednesday in the second game. And so Ruud, he was a bit. I mean, you said the only reason he's playing the younger players is, you reckon, Topper said to him, the club has said, look, you've got to play some of these young kids.
Yeah.
He just wasn't playing them, was he?
No. Some players felt a change of approach should have come earlier, although the continued run of defeats proved that the problem for Van Nistelrooy was not his chosen system, but the aptitude of the players at his disposal, especially the athleticism and fitness of the squad to play in an intense pressing style. Now, I don't care what you say. I think somebody like Sean Dyche, when they come in, will look at his players and go, and as any manager in any business should do, look at your staff and go, you can't do what I want you to do. Now, there's not a lot I can do, because I can't suddenly get rid of you lot and bring in a whole new team. I mean, I can do it individually over time. So I'm going to play to your strengths. Because if you're playing to your strengths, you're going to be doing a hell of a lot better than playing to my strengths and it not working. He says here, Van Nistelrooy favoured the more experienced front three of Vardy, Jordan Ayew and Bobby Dakova-Reid, because they were better at understanding how he wanted them to press from the front. So, all right, so he says, right, these are the players that I want. This is the style I want to play, and these are the players that can do it and understand what I'm asking. But I'm not fucking doing it. You know, I'm doing that, and we're losing game after game after game. He didn't change it soon enough. And then, we're looking, only attacking midfielder El Khanous from the 80 million spent in the summer by Cooper appeared consistently. 15 million for defender Kaleba Coley. He came on, scored a goal in one game and was dropped. We never saw him again.
Yeah, that was bonkers, Koulibaly. Because I don't think you spoke to anybody that saw that match and didn't think he played brilliantly. He had a fantastic game. He got everything. He got tenacious tackling. He drove forward with the ball. He was technically very good on the ball as well.
Yeah.
Ruud definitely lost his way. And we couldn't progress the ball through the pitch to get the ball to Vardy. Dakova-Reid. He was playing really rubbish. Mavididi was struggling for confidence. We'd really lost the way, to be honest. And we got no leaders in the team, had we, either?
Yeah. Blue Fox says the players must have shown something in training to be selected by RVN. Look, my wife's a driving instructor. She doesn't send anybody for the driving test until she feels they are ready. Does that mean that you're automatically going to pass your test? No, because, things happen on the day and what have you. But if somebody fails the test, she wouldn't automatically say, right, you're going to go straight back in. She's going to look at what they've done wrong, why they've done it wrong, and in the short term, before the next test, concentrate on, because they get a list of what they fail on. So the manager should have been looking and saying, yes, I have just said, I want this, I want to play this way. These guys are the guys that can understand it, but they're not performing. So let me try something different. Edouard, whose arrival on loan from Crystal Palace took up the loan spot, featured in just one squad as an unused substitute. Both Cooper and Van Nistelrooy said Edouard's exclusion was to do with numbers. They only used one striker, and that was Vardy. But even when Van Nistelrooy went for two up front, with Patson Daka partnering Vardy, Edouard was not even on the bench. So, there's so much he's saying that isn't coming through. And look, a lot of people say the board didn't back him. And, it is PSR. So when January came round, he didn't have the money. Now, whether he was lied to, I don't know. But everybody says Enzo was lied to. Well, if Enzo was lied to, why did he recommend Ruud to take the job? And I sometimes wonder, yes, you could say the board didn't back him, although we did buy a player we needed a right back, and of course he was never picked. But were they right? Were the board right in saying, look, Cooper's just spent 80 million and bought in a load of poo? Because you've got to back your manager and buy the sort of players that he wants. Can we trust this man to bring players in?
Yeah, plus as well, PSR, Chris, we'd spent all the money, hadn't we? There was no more money available, which is borne out of the fact that the way we've approached, had to wait to get rid of Ruud, get his manager in, and we've had 2 frees, haven't we?
Yes.
So we're in that position, and I think, like you said, it's okay, Nick DeMarco working his magic, but, it will come and bite you, and this is the biting time, and that's it. So you got no money, but there was enough skill and there was enough experience in the squad, but he just couldn't get it together. In fact, we used to say, why is he choosing some of these lineups are mind-boggling, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, he said he wanted more attacking options, especially a winger with Fatawu ruled out for the season, and a central defender to help ease defensive issues, as well as a right back. Well, he got the right back, never played him. He made just one start, and he was substituted at half time in the game. I mean, and he wants to leave because of the way he's been treated, and I don't blame him. All right, so he wants those players. Top saying, look, fortunately, mate, I know I thought we'd have some money, but we haven't got any money. So what does he do? Does he go into the youth section, which he always promised he was going to do, and never did, because we know and we've seen that those players were there? No, he sticks with the ones that are shit week in, week out. And, and I go back to the time, and this to me sums Van Nistelrooy up, telling Monga and Evans that they would be in the team at the weekend or in the squad. Monga was on the subs bench. Evans nowhere to be seen. So that guy's gone and told all his mates, I am in the squad at the weekend, and his mum and dad, oh, so proud of your son. And then he doesn't pick him.
Yeah, you mentioned that at the time, Chris, and you would be really peed off about that, wouldn't you? Really peed off. I think the worst thing is to promise people something and then not deliver. Because then you like reputation, and your reputation in the squad as a manager, you've got to be respected, haven't you?
Yes.
You would say, if you imagine being one of the experienced pros and thinking, hang on a minute, he reckoned he was going to get a game and he's not playing. So that really can promote discord in the group.
It says here, Van Nistelrooy seemed to lose confidence in his players. They seemed to lose confidence in what they were being asked to do. When they conceded an early goal, all belief and fight evaporated. We used to joke that Rodgers was stood at the on the sideline, and then I must buy some fish on the way home. But Van Nistelrooy was even worse. I don't remember seeing him barking many instructions out.
It was very quiet, wasn't it? But quite unemotional, really.
Yes, yeah. I mean, they've said here it's hypothetical to say Cooper would have kept Leicester in the Premier League if he hadn't been replaced by Van Nistelrooy. There is also no escaping Leicester's woeful record under Van Nistelrooy. The failure of the club's recruitment policy was also one of the biggest contributing factors to the relegation. But that's fine. I get that, I guess, but and I guess fans as well, every time a transfer window comes around, all the transfer windows, we must buy players. Yeah, one season, Tottenham Hotspur went to transfer window without buying anybody. Just because it's a transfer window.
Liverpool, last season, Liverpool didn't sign anybody, did they?
No. So but they feel that they've got to. I mean, we were losing 9 consecutive home games without scoring a single goal. Despite that, the fans were seeming to blame Rudkin and what have you. But like we said at the start, it seemed such a perfect and obvious appointment. And it says here, it was almost like when we got relegated, it was almost like putting an injured horse down. It was like putting us out of our misery.
We all breathed a sigh of relief saying, thank God that's over. That was atrocious, wasn't it? It was attritional, Chris.
Yeah. So I think Ruud van Nistelrooy could have had some help from the back, and other decisions could have been made, but I don't think he helped himself. We always say about players, and we've said this about the likes of Outphase, just to name one, but that they believe their own publicity. They think they're better than they are. I think that happened with Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's okay, PSV, because he was. I know he won 2 cups, but he was. You look at that team that won the couple of cups. They were an excellent side. Yeah. Really young, athletic, but very skillful. Gone on to a really good career, like Gakpo, Liverpool. He was in the team. Madueke, Noni Madueke. De Jong up front, prolific goal scorer and assist. So he'd got a very high quality side.
Yeah.
That won the cup. But it's okay having experienced players, but I think all our experienced players over the last few seasons, since we got relegated under Rodgers, they have been underperforming as a group, those players.
They have, but then whoever comes in after Rodgers, whoever that happened to be, Enzo came in and was able to motivate, the players and what have you. I honestly think Ruud van Nistelrooy believed he was better than he actually was. He believed those 4 games in charge of Man United. Man United must be absolutely celebrating. I know it didn't work out. It's not really worked out with them, with the new guy there. But, they must be thinking, thank fuck we didn't give Ruud van Nistelrooy the job here.
Yeah, because like you said with Man United, how long will they carry on just going through the manager, spending shed loads of money on players? The money they spent in the last 5, it's insane.
Yeah. But when I look now at Marty Cifuentes and what he's basically got the same squad that Ruud van Nistelrooy had.
He's got a better squad because a lot of the Seagrave kids have actually matured.
Yes, but taking that out, but even with the players, and forget most of the preseason games, just take the Fiorentina game, because that was, for me, that was the big game. That was the one they were better than Cologne, they were better than anybody we played, Peterborough, obviously, etc. No disrespect to them. That squad, apart from, take the kids out, the squad was the squad that played under Van Nistelrooy. Couple left because they're out of contract, whatever, get that. Playing pretty much the same sort of system that Van Nistelrooy was doing, 4-2-3-1. But the difference between the difference between Marty's squad and team and tactics and formation compared to Ruud's is chalk and cheese.
Yeah,
you look at that first half. We couldn't criticise, or even the players that came on. We couldn't criticise Outphase. We couldn't really criticise Vestergaard. Yes, they made 1 or 2 mistakes, but look, they're still probably going to be a bit nervous. And that's just the manager coming in and changing things around.
It is, and one thing I remember Rodgers saying when he didn't get the signings he felt he needed, when Lookman, look what he went to do, scored 3 goals in a European Cup final, and we were gutted we couldn't keep Lookman, and he was gutted because he said we need 2 or 3 players, because we need to have more competition for places, which will then drive the standards up. And I think one thing about the Seagrave kids, they are pressuring the older players to really step up and deliver, because they realise that unless they do it, they're going to be out of the team and probably have to move on.
Yes.
So it's the competition side of things, which Roger really harped about. And I think Marty has explained very clearly to the people, everybody's got to fight to be in the first 11. There's no giving here.
Yeah.
And the board's into it. And how many, apart from the Cone game, everybody's played really well. Nobody's had a super stinker. And so, like you said, I think he's getting far more out of the players he's got than previous managers have.
Yes. So unfortunately, we've gone from the club that everybody wanted to be like to the club that nobody wants to be like. And you can't put it all, you can't, it's not chicken in the basket. You don't put everything in one basket and go, that's what went wrong. But for me, this guy was the biggest reason why we're where we are now.
I think Cooper and him, the combination of the both, I think
because Cooper, we weren't in the relegation zone when Cooper took over. I'm not saying he would have kept us up, but he didn't mix. With the players. We've read that, but we don't know where we would have gone under Cooper. What Van Nistelrooy did was take over, if you like, not a very good team, and made it a fucking awful team.
Yeah, he did. I do blame Cooper for the signings, though. I mean, he'd spend most of the money, and how effective was it? It wasn't that effective.
You look at the ones that he bought that we're probably going to criticise. Dakova Reed.
Yeah.
Edward. Yeah.
And that was a panic, and that's why we're in PSI, because we're paying him what, 4 or 5 million a year.
Yeah.
For literally not being on the bench or playing.
Skip, I'm going to say that the jury's out with me with Skip.
Yeah.
If he can't do it this season in the Championship, then he has to go. And Ayew,
it was the money, wasn't it, with all the fans? It wasn't that Skip signed; it's the fact that Leicester paid 20. Because you said you did the research, and it's 20.
Yeah, but who's going to come to Leicester at that stage? These are the questions we have to ask. Is that we have to pay. If Man United knocked on Skip's door and said, "We'll give you 15 million a year," he would have gone. I don't know. Why do I want to come to Leicester? 15 million for a year to play for Leicester. We'll give you 20. All right then. You know what I mean? So it's So I tell you, to take what is a bad team and make it an even worse team is why this guy gets the blame from me.
Yeah.
And like I say, we've gone from being a respected club to a laughing stock, and we've got a lot more records than we have. We used to have, our records used to be by Queen. Now they're by Black Lace. That's the difference where we are. But look, I'm on. Catch me over on Fox's Leicester Fan TV. I'm going over there for 7:30. Wayne, thank you very, very much. He has gone now. We can put it to bed, and I just think we've got a manager that, like you say, can take it. To take the same team group of players and make that difference. I'm so looking forward to this season now.
Definitely, yeah.
I was watching a program, a prediction thing, and they said they were quoting like quoting for the Championship games next weekend, and it came to Leicester Sheffield Wednesday and said this has got to be the biggest mismatch ever in football.
Everybody's put down at least 3-0, haven't they?
They have. I've not done mine yet. I'm a little bit worried. But look, thanks very much, Wayne. Appreciate you coming on, mate. That's been interesting because, yes, you've got to then say, why aren't the players? The biggest thing for me was why weren't the players doing on the pitch at match time what they're doing on the training pitch? But I still come back to the thing was, well, why wasn't Ruud van Nistelrooy making sure they were doing it?
That's what he's paid the big bucks for, isn't it, Chris?
Exactly. Look, message your way, not you can't message Wayne. Message Jim and see what he's doing. Message me, and then we'll make a decision whether we're going to do the second show later.
All right, mate, we'll do.
But really appreciate this, mate. Thanks so much. I'm going to be jumping over to Leicester Fan TV at 7:30. Why not come and join me? Thank you so very, very much, Wayne. I have no idea what we're talking about. It's going to be interesting.
Always is, Chris. Always is. And it
You
is
never know with Leicester.
positive chat, probably. There's a real positive buzz around the club, isn't there now?
There is. This is the thing, and it's not. You said a thing. You messaged me after the post match that you were saying. Isn't it great to be talking about positive things again?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'll speak to you later, Wayne. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Smash the like button, subscribe, notification, all that shit. If you're watching on catch up, add your comments below. Thank you for listening to me. If you're listening via your favourite podcast, take care, buddy, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best, everybody. See you in a bit.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.